Hi, it's Ed with Free Circle. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon. I just wanted to get on and do a quick podcast update. I was just reading here out of podcast news. Anchor. No, Anchor does not own your podcast. There's been a lot of topic about Anchor taking control of your content and owning it when you sign up for Anchor. So the CEO of podcasting company Anchor, Michael Meganano, I probably butchered that, writes that Anchor does not own the podcast, and highlighting the company's new clarified terms of service. So Anchor has updated their terms of service, and it's more understanding to everybody that Anchor is actually, and let's actually click on there, and I want to go over to that article for a minute, because when I read it earlier, there was some interesting things in here. It says Anchor is built for creators. The mission that drives every decision we make is to democratize audio by giving everyone, regardless of experience level or financial means, easy and powerful tools to make a podcast and share their voice. There's a lot of companies doing this now. Dialogue's one of them. So hats off to companies that allow people that cannot afford to host their content the ability to get out and get their voice heard. So Anchor is stepping up the game. It says a few months ago, we noticed there was some confusion among the podcasting community about our terms of service and ownership of podcasts powered by Anchor. So the Anchor team, and I spoke directly with countless podcasters, heard all of their feedback, listened to their concern, and realized there was room to simplify and clarify our terms. So it's unquestionably clear that when you make a podcast on Anchor, you own your work. So that's really important, that people feel that they still own their content. And hats off to companies that are doing that, making it simple and easy to get your voice out and heard. Another thing I want to highlight out of podcast news is PodTrack. If you don't know what PodTrack is, you should Google it, especially if you do have a podcast and you want to get good analytics for your podcast downloads and listens. And you can have all your podcast organized in one simplified area, and it's analytics.podtrack.com, I believe. Let me make sure, because yes, it's analytics.podtrack.com. And you can go over there, register your podcast, and keep track of your numbers a lot better, which is up to agents, the standards of podcasting agencies. Anyway, so PodTrack, it is a good company. They're doing good things. I use PodTrack, and I know that they offer you a place for your listeners to go on to the website and take a survey. So they give you a specialized link that you embed in your website, and you ask your listeners to go over and take your survey, and it helps you understand what, how, where, when, all about your podcast. So that's another good little podcaster's secret about getting your numbers, and good numbers, numbers that matter. It also says that podcast publisher numbers, the numbers are ranked in the terms of U.S. monthly audience. So iHeartRadio's acquisition of How Stuff Works have propelled them up to the number 2 spot. The company iHeartRadio now claims 147 million global downloads. So podcasting is getting more measurable, and you get a lot better understanding now of what is going on. Another big one is Google Podcasts. They are stepping up their game. Spotify is stepping up their game. So podcasting is building a following, and the clarification is getting better with how many downloads, how many listens, where those are coming from. And with companies helping like PodTrack, you can really analyze and focus your content in the places you need to be presenting yourself a little bit better. So, yeah, PodTrack, they help you understand and analyze your traffic. And a lot more. With that survey, you can actually understand more what your audience wants you to lean towards and provide to them. So I recommend that if you have a podcast, use PodTrack. And another good thing is sign up for podcast news, and you get a lot of insight of what is going on. And you can sign up to Pod News. Just Google them. They're easy to find. So, yeah, it's interesting what is going on in the podcast world. So I wanted to share that with you. And another thing going on kind of close to home here is these California fires. People are being devastated by these fires, and a lot of people locally are rounding up goods and caravanning down and kind of networking together to bring supplies that are needed. And one of the most needed is water. Imagine that. Next to the food, water is pretty vital, especially when you've got a lot of people. They are apparently making up tent cities, and the amount of people that are not insured with the fire insurance is just wow. So there's a lot of people that are being hurt by these fires. I was in Klamath Falls earlier today, and I noticed that the smoke is rolling up into Klamath Falls and the area due to those wildfires, and it's really a concern. The amount of people, there's over 600 that are unaccountable for the last count that I heard. and a devastating amount of dead. So this thing went quick, it went fast, and it's a devastation that people are going to feel for a long time. And a lot of people don't realize after this fire goes through, we're going into a wet season, a winter and then a spring, that there's not going to be time to get the ground stabilized with grasses and these things. So there's a concern there with ground saturation and these mudslides later on. So a lot of people aren't thinking about that. There's going to be more devastation later that comes out of this. So I ask everybody kind of nod their head and pray towards them and just hope the best for these people. And if you can donate, look them up and donate to them. They could sure use your help down there. And on that note, we want to thank those people that are on the front lines fighting those fires, those firefighters. Fireman Rich, you know, he was a fireman for the Air Force, but he knows what it is about fire. So yeah, fire is devastating, and there's those men and women that put their lives on the line to go fight these fires and bring support systems to that area. So there's a lot of people that coordinate efforts and do a lot of good when people get hurt. So I take notice on things like that, and I like to see how people actually come together in time of need and disaster. So yeah, check out the California fires, and if you can help in any way, please do so. And on that note, I want you to enjoy the weekend. I'll be back Sunday. This is my Friday, and I don't do anything on the Sabbath for my Saturday. So this Ed Free Circle, you have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.